Cause and effect arguments. What are the causes of A? What are the effects of B? Before we look at the elements of cause and effect arguments, let's discuss their significance. Cause and effect arguments are a part of daily life. My children are always making cause and effect arguments. I pushed her because she called me a stupid dumbhead. This claim is intended to get me to take my son's desired course of action, punish his sister instead of him. If we know what caused a problem, we are in a better position to develop solutions. If we know what the effects of a decision will be, then we can more effectively evaluate that decision. Cause and effect arguments are really important. There are really three general ways to approach or structure a causal argument. The first is to create an argument that states a cause and then examines its effect. So an example would be looking at electronic cigarette use. Here's the thing, here's my subject. Now I want to look at what the effects of this might be. And I could research those effects and I might find that it leads to impaired health, increased use of other drugs, and academic problems. The second type is the reverse of the first type, where you state an effect, here is the thing, and now let's go back and look at what caused this thing. So we can actually take the same topic. I've noticed there's been an increase in electronic cigarette use among teenagers. Why is this happening? And after doing some research, I might find that social media advertising plays a role in this, as do social media influencers, and that the appealing flavors and packaging are also contributing to this increase. Looking at these causes can help us figure out ways to decrease the use of electronic cigarettes among teenagers. And finally, we have the domino effect argument, arguments that move through a series of links. So we have a starting point, whatever the first cause is, and we keep moving through effects, and this could go on indefinitely. So we're going to look at the coronavirus outbreak, because this is one that it's really fresh right now. It is April 2020, and this certainly is having a lot of domino effect causes. The outbreak is leading to mandates that people stay home, which is leading to a lot of businesses closing temporarily. But even temporarily, this is leading to job loss, or at least reduced income, which in turn leads to recession. When writing a cause and effect argument, be sure that you first support your causal claim with strong evidence that actually proves causality. Sometimes we notice two things are correlated, but that doesn't mean that one thing caused the other. It could be a coincidence. So you need to be able to prove that what you're saying is a cause did in fact cause whatever your subject is. You also really want to think carefully about these causal relationships. Don't just start with the first explanation you find. Always dig a little bit deeper to search for something more complex. This is a way that you can anticipate potential counterarguments, which is point 3, that you need to address potential counterarguments. Anticipate what your audience might say about the cause and effect relationship you're arguing, and make sure that you've done your homework to establish this relationship, and then show your audience that you've done that homework. Cause and effect arguments can be the dominant or umbrella type of argument. The paper can be mostly a cause and effect argument. But cause and effect arguments also work well in combination with a couple of the other types. namely proposals. If blank caused this problem, then blank is a good solution. Or we should do blank because of ABC positive effects. Cause and effect arguments also pair well with evaluation arguments. Blank is a good plan because of ABC effects. And although the intentions of blank were good, we should reform it because of ABC negative effects. Now we're going to look at a few different examples of cause and effect arguments. The first example is an argument about women in the STEM field. Fairly lengthy, complex thesis. Although many women are inspired by these reforms, and she's talking about women's rights reforms and attempts to get more women to study STEM. So although many women are inspired by these reforms to study engineering in college, a large number of females continue to leave the profession early in their careers because they experience sexism and old gender roles in the less structured work environment, doubt their problem-solving skills in group atmospheres, and discover that the engineering profession is not as socially conscious as they expected. So this argument is really taking causes as the dominant argument, while certainly elements of the other types will weave their way in. And in fact, what this student does near the end of her paper is suggest a few solutions based on these causes, but the bulk of her paper is exploring and developing what is causing women to leave STEM professions, even though the numbers of students studying STEM in college are increasing. Our second example is a paper about the Common Core state standards. And here's her thesis. While the Common Core state standards are inherently beneficial to students, the poor implementation, rushed timeline, and public polarization of the standards have curtailed the initiative's success. So this argument first evaluates the Common Core state standards, and proving that they are in fact beneficial. This evaluation serves as a concession of sorts. It's kind of saying, you know what, there were really good ideas here. There are things happening in the Common Core that are beneficial. But the rest of the argument shows how these standards failed in spite of the inherent benefits. So she starts with a little bit of an evaluation and then moves into looking at what caused the failure. And then finally, we're going to look at an argument about preserving coral reefs. Coral reefs are being ravaged by climate change, which contributes to coral disease and bleaching, ultimately leading to the deaths of coral reef ecosystems. The protection and conservation of coral reef ecosystems must become a priority of the international community, as the catastrophic and widespread consequences of the destruction of coral reefs will permeate every aspect of everyday life. So the very beginning of her argument is factual. She first has to prove that coral reefs are being damaged by climate change. This establishes the significance of her proposal. She then starts to discuss some of the effects of this damage, which increases the significance of her proposal. These effects then become the basis of that proposal argument that it is necessary to preserve these ecosystems, in fact, so necessary that it needs to become an international priority. And so, in a longer, more complex paper, you are going to see how the various types of arguments work together in this way. And finally, let's again reconsider why cause and effect arguments matter. Cause and effect arguments are powerful in part because causes and effects are often what matter most. If you plan to incorporate cause and effect claims, be sure to do so in a logical way. Consider what your audience already knows or believes and build from those common places.